thank Daley College for hosting it. The reason we're here is to discuss burglary prevention. First, I'm going to give you the definition of a burglary. Burglary is when a person without authority enters or without authority remains within a building, a house, trailer, watercraft, aircraft, or motor vehicle with the intent to commit a theft. In the United States, a burglary is committed every 15 seconds. Burglary is a crime that affects everyone, either directly or indirectly. But with a little knowledge, you can make it that much more difficult to become a victim. Our goal is for you to walk away from this seminar armed with that information. It is now my pleasure to introduce the commander of the 8th District, David McNaughton.
Thank you, Ronald. I want to thank you all for taking the time on a Saturday morning to come out here and learn about burglary prevention. And the biggest thing we can do today is what we gather and what we gain today as far as information. We want to expand upon this multifold. Tell your neighbors, your friends, your relatives what you learned today. That's number one. I do want to thank Sergeant Al Kane and the CAP staff for organizing this event. And then I really want to thank Officer Maudessie Jointer of the 14th District, who, since I think she's become a police officer, has organized this Keepin It Real program to bring real convicts, real criminals who have victimized maybe people in this room even in the past before. And they're going to tell us how they do things. What their modus operandi is. We can guess, we can investigate, we can actually arrest, but it can't get any better, I should say, than when you get it right from the horse's mouth and how they operate. It gives us an idea on how we can better defend ourselves against the crime of burglary. I also want to mention Alderman Folks came today. Thank you. One elected official. That's fantastic. Really appreciate you coming out today. And I'll let you get on with the program. But again, I want to thank all of you for taking the time here today. It's so important, and please get this word out to your friends, your neighbors, and your relatives. Thank you very much.
All right, first up, I'm going to introduce Central Division Detective Ron Skrip. We'll talk about a couple of prevention techniques that we could use. This is a recycled. By no means is this all me, so I'm going to expel a little. Some of the things I see I agree with, I'll talk about, and some of the things I don't agree with, I'll try and clarify why I don't. So we'll just be patient with me and we'll get through this. So first of all, if you could, you're the most important person in deterring crime. That is because we live in the neighborhoods where the crimes occur. The police are mobile or drive around in cars, so they are not sitting on porches, sitting in yards, talking to neighbors, dropping off mail. It's us, it's the people that live in the community that need to be aware that we are the people that stop things from happening. Burglar seeks out a home or apartment that offers the least resistance. Most burglaries occur during the day, normally between 10 and 2 o'clock. For evaluating your house, basically, you always want to be aware of your own property, obviously, because no one knows your home as well as you do. Keys are a big part of what we all do. You know, you have someone coming to your house, a friend, a relative, a cleaning lady, whoever it is, you feel a comfort zone with them to leave a key. You're leaving a key for that person, but you're also leaving a key for absolutely anyone else who's been watching your house. So just, you can't be very discreet about leaving a key. You know, that's something we all have to be aware of. You know, so many times it's so easy to pick up a mat and find keys or mail or checks you're leaving for one another, and it's just, it's too easy to look past that. Questions to ask yourself. Lighting is always a big one. Like I said, most burglaries take place during the daytime hours, but a smart burglar is going to know that some people are at home, they're sleeping during the day hours, they work at night. So if you are someone that works off hours, afternoons or midnights, you want to always make the appearance of the lights being on in the house, lights on in somebody's home. Everything is foolproof, but it's always a good standard to set yourself to make it look as though someone's there. Your landscaping. Landscaping is around houses is one thing. I used to do evaluations of school for safety too, and it's basically if you have big tall bushes or trees that block your neighbor's view of your front and back door, well, it's good they can't see your back door if you want your privacy from them, but it also can hide somebody in that same situation. The surroundings, making the burglars know that you have something in there. A lot of times what we see is when guys are breaking into houses, and it could be girls, a lot of times it's as easy as driving up and down an alley and checking to see what's in the alley. If you just bought a brand new flat screen TV and the box is sitting behind your garage, it doesn't take anyone very smart to realize that the TV is inside the house right now. Security systems. I'm a big proponent of security systems. I have one in my house. It's set all the time. It's set. I have a 2-story house. If I'm upstairs and not downstairs, the alarm is set. So if someone comes in and tries to open the door, that alarm is going off whether I'm home or not. This is a lot of this stuff is going to be common sense, and I hate to insult anyone's intelligence on this, but you always have to be aware of where people can get into your house. Quite often, all of us at one time in time have locked your keys in your house, and you have to find a way into your own house. Well, that's the same way that anyone can make way into your house. You always have to be aware of what's the easiest way to get into your house, and how do you change that. This is back to the landscaping again. As far as well-manicured lawns, emphasis that someone's there paying attention to it. The kids we locked up last week, what they told us after they had been arrested is they basically drove around aimlessly. They would stop and basically wait until they saw someone exit in the house. It could have been any one of us in this room exiting your own house. They'd wait until you got in the car. Car would drive down the street. They would get out of their cars, knock on your door, and if no one answered, they'd break into your house and steal your stuff. But what they did tell us is they looked for the telltale signs, the grass that hadn't been cut, the large amount of newspapers, mail, just things that looked as though someone was not living there. Now, as most of you probably have the neighbors that use their back doors and they really don't care about their front doors, but not by caring about their front doors, they're also leaving all the yellow shopper papers and everything that we get delivered that we really don't want on your front step. Well, you got to be aware of that that's part of taking care of your house, is making it look as though someone is always there. This goes back to the landscaping still. Tree limbs, not so much in Chicago, but it is something to be aware of. If you have a window that's not very well secured on the second floor with a tree that stands right next to it, as children, a lot of people climb trees. As adults, burglars find any way into a house. So if it's climbing up a tree, so be it. Dogs are always great. Every time I interview someone, no one likes dogs that they don't know. Big dogs, small dogs, dogs are always great. I don't right now own a dog, and I don't know if I would buy one just for that reason, but if you do, it's a great thing to have. If you are a dog person and you're considering one, it is a good thing to have. Like I said, most people just don't know what the dog they're entering the residence is, a friend or foe, but it's always also a good deterrent. Barking dogs, these kids, if they said that was part of it. If they knocked on the door and no one answered, they would go in. But if they knocked on the door and the dog, barked, they wouldn't take that chance. Putting up the beware a dog sign, they have some deterrents that you could do. I'm sure these guys will tell you a different story about that, but I've seen it work both ways. Sometimes it is that deterrent that makes them go to the next house that doesn't have a sign, doesn't have a bowl. Sometimes they know it's just a cheap sign you could buy at the hardware store. So it's one of those good and bad things. It's better than nothing is what a lot of this comes out to. Motion sensor lights, street lights, those are always good things. If you have a driveway, if you have obviously electricity on your garage, motion sensors will at least let the light go off. Lights go off, it alarms people, alarms your neighbors if the light's on and off. So I also a big proponent of motion sensors. Items in your yard, we're all guilty of that. We barbecue, of course you leave your grill out. You don't want to bring your grill in and out, but the more things you leave in your yard, the more things that it alarms people that I see they have a $1,000 Weber grill in their yard. That must mean they have some nice stuff in their house. it's just one of those things to be aware of, that when you're showing people what you have, it also entices them to see what else you have. Doors, steel doors are good. No door is foolproof. The thing about it is, if you just have to be aware of keeping your doors locked. I've handled so many burglaries where the people just have this sense of security that they're running out of the house for a few minutes, they're running down the street, and they leave their doors wide open. So you could have the best door in the world, the best security system in the world, but if you leave your stuff unattended or open, it's going to be counterproductive to that. Once again, doors are, we always, a big advocate of the steel doors. Hollow core doors are made for interiors. We see sometimes that people to save money, they might put a hollow core door on their garage. Not a good idea. The harder it is to get into something, the more time it's going to take. So just be aware of, if your door has multiple locks, use multiple locks. If you have one lock locked and two that aren't, well, that's, you've taken away, 2/3 of your security system right there. Sliding glass doors, if you have the patio doors, everyone knows that they have a bar that you could put at the bottom of it. It disables the door from sliding, basically. But once again, that's one of the things that has to become habitual. If you have it, you should get in the habit of using it whenever the doors aren't open. Garage doors, burglaries are burglaries. You could have your house burglarized, you could have your garage burglarized, your car, anything that you own that someone goes in and takes something that isn't yours is a burglary, like Sergeant Kane said. Garages are another one that, because your personal belongings as far as jewelry and mementos and everything are in the garage, you still have to be aware of, the garage also has contents in it that people would like to take. So you should always secure your garage as well as you should secure your house. It's basically an extension of your house, and it's really a good practice to always think of it as such. Same windows and doors are the same thing, locked when not open. If they're open and you want some fresh air, that's great, but the moment you're leaving the house and the doors and windows are closed, they should be locked as well. Like I said, windows and doors are basically the same standard, though. You could have good windows and bad windows, but just by the fact of locking them and securing them, it just slows someone down. Like I said, nothing is perfect from keeping someone from coming into your place, but if you could slow them down, it might distract them. It might, it might just take the wind out of their sails, where they decide, okay, this is too much work, I'm going to go somewhere where it's a little bit easier. Like I said, locks, like I said, we can talk about locks. I could have a locksmith come in here and tell you that basically any lock that's made could be defeated. There's multiple ways of getting into locks. Someone that wants to break into a house by way of a lock, they're not gentle about it. They're going to do whatever it takes to defeat the lock. So once again, as long as the door is locked, it's a good practice. So I don't mean to scare anybody with this stuff. Like I said, if someone really wants to get in your house, there's 100 ways they could do it. This is basically to let you know how we can slow people down, how we could be more aware of our surroundings, and how we can kind of take a look out for each other. Keys are keys. I've run audits for school before just to see who has keys to get into certain doors and certain classrooms, and it's endless. It's absolutely endless. In a place like this, anyone that's ever worked here might have keys. They can make copies of keys. So as far as your residence goes, anytime that you lose a key, automatically change the lock. Even if you have 10 keys and you lost one of them, assume that that key is out there. And if you don't know where it's at, it's a good practice that if one key is missing, assume that someone that does not belong having that key has that key. Deadbolts, like I said, we all know what deadbolts are. Once again, if you have that deadbolt, just make sure it's used. It takes that extra second. We all know it's all habitual. If you're used to engaging your deadbolt, you'll always be used to doing it. It's just don't think that because you're running down the street, the deadbolt doesn't need to be put on. If you have it, you should always use that. This safety tips, like I said, some of these are my ideas, some I read, and I kind of agree with, I kind of don't, but as far as mailboxes in the city, unless you live in an apartment, we generally don't have our names on there. But if you do have a name on the mailbox, it is good to be less specific on who actually belongs there. The mailman will still deliver your mail no matter what it says on the box. So if you are a single person, if you want to put family instead of just your name, it's a good practice. That way, if someone sees one person leaving the house, they might assume that because it says family, there's additional members in the house, and maybe they will take a walk down the street instead of your house. Engraving names or initials on valuables, that's always a good idea. I know there's a checklist, and I know we'll probably get them out at the beat meetings, but there's a checklist that we'll get to you, and what it basically does is you take an inventory of everything in your own house. When we do catch people, a lot of times we find out they're using pawn shops, and we use the pawn shop registry to help locate your items, and it's a real good website. Pawn shops, most of them aren't mandated. There's some problems with the Illinois state government that kind of put a quash on that. But if you have your TV stolen and you know your serial number, I can put it into a data bank and it'll tell me if it was recently pawned at one of the local pawn shops. So it's always good to have. Next to having a serial number, if it's a serial number it's hard to find or read, you can put your own initials on it. You can put something that's specific to you, that if I brought you into our office and I had 5 video recorders, you could tell me which is yours because maybe you scrolled, you know, your birth date or your initials or something that would make it specific to yourself.
Officer, can I ask you a question
Sure.
about engraving? Is there something you can buy to engrave your things at home by yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the hardware stores still sell the old-time engravers that, you know, and now everything is made of plastic. It's so much easier to engrave something. But I mean, you can do it with a knife, you can do it with a, you know, building construction nail, anything that's tough enough to scratch plastic, since almost everything is made of plastic these days. But, you know, it's just good to do if you're going to do it. Make it where it's consistent though. So if you're going to use your initials, don't switch back and forth to, you know, your birth date, your initials. Keep it the same so that if we do find something, we might find an item today that was stolen last week, but then we might find something in 6 months from now. So at least it would give us something to go with. You know, it's just sometimes our items don't show up for a long time. You know, the kids we caught a couple weeks ago, we caught them with proceeds from that day. But what they also had in their car was a GPS unit. And I mean, it's easy enough to do. We pressed the home button on the GPS unit. It gave us the address of the owner. And we found out that he was actually a retired police officer, and that GPS was stolen 6 months prior to when we caught the kids. So for 6 months, they used the GPS to drive around our neighborhood and figure out which house they wanted to break into. But like I said, that was one that luckily the home button was still activated. But like I said, sometimes proceeds don't show up for a long time. A burglary is a felony. We have 3 years to charge someone criminally. But we could still get, you know, your stuff back in 5 years from now, maybe. So it's just a good practice to do.
Thank you.
Sure. The way I talked about the empty boxes a little bit, like I said, it's always just a, you know, just break up your boxes. I once had someone say that he throws all his stuff in his neighbor's garbage. I'm glad his neighbor wasn't there that day. To me, it's not a good practice. So. Repairmen and being unsupervised in your home. You know, it's hard. We all, at some point in time, have someone in your house that you don't know. The cable guy, the phone guy, you know, whatever you have going on. I worked a case a couple years ago that I'm sure a lot of you might remember, where a Comcast cable guy had killed a girl. And we worked that case for a long time. Luckily, he's still in jail and his case is still pending, so I can't talk a lot about that. But what's the shame of that whole story is there was 2 victims that he killed both of them, actually. The first one in Hyde Park, she called her boyfriend and said, "This guy is looking at me very strangely. I just have a very bad feeling." And you know, in her defense, she was a very attractive girl, and that's what the boyfriend told her, like, you know, guys always kind of look at you like that. Well, it was the look of someone who was going to kill someone, basically. But it's just one of those things that we all have cable, we all have phones, you're letting people in your house. I always say it's a good practice that if you have a friend or neighbor just come sit with you at that time, it's a good idea. They don't know who lives there. They don't know if one or both of you live there, but it's just a good practice to show that you are not home alone. You know, in Comcast defense, that was a private contractor. It was not someone that went through their screening, but it was just someone that was doing a job that every one of us has cable or phone in our house, so we've all had that same type of person in our house before. Photographing valuable items, that goes back to the same thing with identification purposes later on down the line. Digital cameras are great. You know, the problem is that if you're going to photograph, make sure you take that memory card out and put it somewhere where you know where to find it. If you're tech savvy, there's 100 different things you could do, but I'm not going to get into a lot of that, but it's basically the photograph is great, but know where to find the photograph when the time comes. Same thing with safe deposit boxes. You know, banks have them if you want to use a bank for something that's very valuable. And if you want to use, you know, safe deposit box to keep stuff for reference is like photographs or manifests of sheets that you have with your IDs on it. But it's always good just to, like I said, make sure you keep some type of written and photographed, I would say, history of what you have in your house. This goes back to the, like I said, the strangers and the, you know, electric company, gas company is one thing. We, as detectives, we also deal with the ruses that people use to get into your house. We're forbidden from seeing gypsies anymore, so I won't say that. But these are Europeans that come to your house, and it's under a guise of something else, that, you know, they're fixing leaky roofs, or they're mixing concrete, and the neighbor that they're mixing concrete from has their water off, so they need to come into your basement and use your basement sink to use your water. You know, there's 100 angles. The man next to me is 95 years old, and a guy told him that they were going to be fixing the curbs in front of his house the next day, and he couldn't park his car in front of his house. Well, he was smart enough to say, well, I have a driveway and a garage, and I don't park in front of my house. And he got the police, I got the license plate number of the guy that drove away, and he never showed up again. But obviously that he wasn't fixing any curbs. He was just trying to make entry into his house. But there's 1,000 ways, and a lot of us, you like to think that, you know, people are good-natured people, and they really, you know, they might be soliciting for, some noble cause, and you want to welcome them into your house and sit down and have a cup of coffee, and it's just not like that anymore. Once again, if you believe someone is there at your house to do no good, you should always be aware of it and immediately call the police. Is the commander still here?
No.
Okay, then I will say this. In our neighborhood, and I'm talking about the whole 8th district in general, I've worked citywide. Like I said, I've been a police officer for 19 years. And there are certain neighborhoods in this city where people call the police for absolutely everything. And you would be astonished at the things they call the police about. The 8th district, it's one of the busiest districts in calls for service. But I also think, based on the amount of burglaries that happen in the 8th district, it is also the most overlooked by the people that live there. I think a lot of people that live there they want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You know, my general answer is, if you know someone does not belong on your block, in your yard, down the street, and they look like they're up to no good, call the police. I mean, it is our job. It's our job to go and see what that person is doing there. By pure coincidence, my neighbor called me last night, and I'm kind of torn on this because, yes, I'm a police officer, but when I'm not on duty, call 911. I tell people that all the time. She called me and said that there's a guy in front of our neighbor's house, and he's on his phone, and he's been pacing back and forth for half an hour. And it's canopied by trees, it's very dark, and that neighbor had just passed away last week. I don't know where his family is. I don't know if they took the remaining spouse, if she's being taken care of by one of the children now. So to me, it didn't seem right. Gut instinct, it didn't seem right. So against my better judgment, I approached him, and he was 1 block off from where he was supposed to meet his friend. It was something that simple, but he could have just easily been there looking to see how long it would take for someone to approach him, stand in front of a house. It said it's twofold, and hopefully Sergeant King's not going to be mad about this, but like I said, if you feel something is wrong, call the police. It's the best advice I could ever give to somebody, because if your first instinct is usually your right instinct, and if you're wrong, then what's the worst thing? If someone is told that they're on the wrong block, someone is told how to get from point A to point B, you're not stereotypical, you're not trying to say, oh, you know, this guy, that guy should not be here. Yeah, they have a right to any street in the city, but they also, you as a citizen and a homeowner, you have the right to feel secure in your house. So if you don't think something is right, by all means, call the police. So that's get out of the way.
The last one, would we have received a call from the gas company or the electricity?
No, not always. You know, that's they are good about identification cards. The problem is that if you ask me today what an identification card should look like, I would have a good idea, but I would not have the exact idea of what it should look like. Most guys that we deal with, they won't go to those lanes. If they're coming in your house, they're going to be the guys that walk up and down the block with, you know, oversized pants and shirts hanging out that you know they don't wear a shirt and tie for a living, and they've got a clipboard with absolutely nothing else, and they're trying to hawk lawn care services or whatever. Well, unless a true green truck is attached with that person, once again, I would never allow that person in my house. If you want to have the conversation on the porch, that's fine. It should never get past the porch. Like I said, this is writing down descriptions. That's one of the things that drives us absolutely crazy. Because if you see a person, I know it's like sometimes your mind works against you. We just showed a photo yesterday of a guy who had, it's a long story, with very expensive European cars, and he had been taken really hard for a couple $100,000 in sales. And he dealt with this girl on 3 or 4 times. I showed him 6 photographs. The girl was in one of the 6 photographs. He couldn't tell me which one she was. He knew her by name, her address, her phone number. He had been out to lunch before. But your mind does play tricks on you. So the best thing you can do is write something down. If you document something, it's documented forever. Your mind, like I said, from one day to the next, especially if it's a traumatic experience, your house is broken into, you might see a guy running out the back door. A lot of things are going through your mind, and one of them that is going to be forgotten quickly is always the description. So if you can write down descriptions of cars, plates, even partial plates, we're able to work with that right now. But just any description is better than none at all. These are basic things about vacations. I want to hear their perspective on this, but my whole take is the more you can seem as though your house is occupied, the better off your house is. Timers on lights, timers on radios that make noise, that make, you can put a timer on your television that turns your television on for an hour at night, the glare of the television, the sound of the television, anything, like I said, I always go back to anything is better than nothing, and it's just something to think about. I do this all the time. I have a driveway, and when I'm not home, I park one of my cars outside of the garage in the driveway. Is it foolproof? No, it isn't. If someone's looking to break into a house and they see that there's one car out and the rest of my neighbors don't, is he going to take the chance? I don't know. But it's a practice. Like I said, a lot of this is redundant, but it's a practice that the more you do it, it just becomes part of the nature of what you do. Stopping deliveries, it's good and bad. You could call the U.S. Postal Service and tell them to stop your mail for a month, and I think you need an extension after that. I'm sure someone that maybe goes to Florida for the winter would clarify that, but it's a good and bad thing. You're letting the post office know you're not going to be home, but at the same point, you're letting the post office know you're not going to be home. And I don't know who works at the post office. I don't know who has access to those files that say hold my mail. So it's just one of those things. It's a crapshoot. It's good to not let your mail pile up, but I technically, if I'm out of town, I have a neighbor that always takes care of my mail and my papers for me. Same thing with keeping the appearance, mowing your lawn, shoveling your snow. I mean, it's easy enough to see if we have 6 inches of snow and all but one of the houses is shoveled. Well, either it's someone that just doesn't care or someone that's not home. The crime of opportunity, and it's 100% true. The more of an opportunity you give someone, the more they're going to take it. It's true in anything in life, but burglaries are definitely, you're giving someone an opportunity to come into your house. Camera systems are good, alarm systems are good, but just as good as that is the appearance. If cameras and alarms are good for, after a door might be broken into, the alarm goes off. If you have a camera, it might capture someone, but you'd like to be more proactive in stopping that from happening instead of reactive. these are the basics, obviously, 911 for an emergency, 311 for a non-emergency. It's up to you, obviously. It's, like I said, the thing about it is if you could be proactive, and just a second on this, you could do everything in the world to stop something from happening. And I would rather see everyone take efforts to stop things from happening, because you could put your name and number on your items, but that's good if your items are taken. It's better if your items aren't taken. And it's the steps that you need to take from stopping someone to come into your house. One last thing I just want to touch on. If your house does get broken into, the best thing you can do is call the police and wait for them outside. The last thing we want to do is have a contaminated scene. And a contaminated scene is you go through and you're in a rush, and your mother's ring that she left you, you want to make sure it's there. But when you do that, you go in your room, you might disturb some of the evidence that we might need. So as much as you want to, and it's hard, it's human nature to go and check on your belongings, but the best thing I can tell you is to just wait for the police. Sooner or later you're going to be able to go in and walk through with the police. But most of our crimes of burglary are solved through evidence. Very seldom do we get the guy running out the back door. A lot of times it's things that catch up with them. It's the fingerprints, it's the blood evidence. I specialized in, I was a DNA detective for a couple of years, and it's amazing the things that we could get DNA from and off that people leave behind. And sometimes, they don't think about it. They have a runny nose, they use a tissue, they throw it on the floor. Maybe it falls out of their pocket. Well, we could use that to get evidence: toothpicks, cigarettes, hair follicles, anything that belonged to a person, we could use as evidence against them. But by us going into our own crime scenes and disturbing it, it takes away the ability for us to catch them. So just something to be thoughtful of. Yes?
I have a question. I'm in the process of thinking about putting up security cameras.
Yes.
And between my husband and I was thinking that should we have the camera visible where if a criminal come by, they can see the camera, or should we have it hidden?
Well, it's twofold. There are systems where you have multiple cameras. Cameras as a deterrent sometimes. Cameras are more of a reactive that we're able to use it. There was an evidence technician whose house was broken into last year, right across the alley from our former superintendent, Phil Klein's house. And he had the best security system in the world. And the guys are currently fighting their case at 26 in California. The video is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's them. It's down to the tattoos on their arms. There's no disputing it's the right guys. They saw it. It did not stop them from going in. We were able to use it as evidence against them, but it did not stop them from going in. I think it's just this, people do burglaries for different reasons. Some are motivated by money, some are motivated by just the items that they might be able to get. A lot are motivated by drugs, and it's one of those things that their thought process isn't where it should be. So if they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out. Burglaries don't take a long time. And they might spend more time watching the house than actually in there. They don't want to spend very much time in there because they don't know how to get out for the most part. If they go in the front door and they don't know the layout of the house, well, they might be trapped in there. So it's one of those things that, yes, cameras are good for reactive, but I see these, we call the police signs, and they're all good. But if you go drive down the block and everybody's got them, and they know they're going to break into the house in that block, what else stops them from breaking into your house? And it could be the cameras. I'm a big proponent of security. Like I said, I have my brother-in-law, thank God, does it for a living, and I have one of the best security systems in the world. Could my house still be broken into? 100% yes, it could be. But it gives me peace of mind at night to know that if someone comes in my door, people 4 blocks away are going to hear my alarm.
Burglars go in the house armed, do you think?
In my history of what I've been doing,
Yes.
not many.
Okay.
There's a difference, once again, in robberies and burglaries. There's another crime that's called a home invasion. A home invasion is when they know you're home and they break into your house. That's not something that happens very often, because that is a crime where the victim is handpicked, and they're handpicked for a reason. And that's either they have a large cachet of things that they should or should not have in their own house. And that's drugs, it's guns, it's a lot of money. And so people who do home invasions, 100%, they're always armed because the houses they're breaking into, those homeowners are also armed. But for the most part, the general burglar, they're looking for that quick score. You know, it's get in and get out, and you know, nowadays it's what can you carry? The kids you caught the other day, their jewelry, that's all they wanted was jewelry. You know, so they would go right up to the bedrooms, they look for the jewelry boxes, they take the jewelry and they leave. Because it was stuff they could stick in their pockets. You know, they were passing up 3 and 4 big screen TVs. They didn't want them, you know, because what are you going to do with them once you get them? You're going to drop it going out, and it's useless. So anything you could stick in your pocket. Like, yes?
There was something you didn't elaborate about not advertising funerals, weddings, something you skipped.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Like I said,
Yeah, do you remember that?
yeah, you know, it's, people die. It's part of life. But if you know that your neighbor's, you know, wife has passed away and he's going to be there for 2 days, you just like to pay a little bit more special attention to that house. You know, they'll have announcements of weddings going on. You know, in years past, we used to see more of that, I think, where people would, you know, you clip something out that, you know, John and Mary's daughter's getting married, you know, June 4th or something like that. Well, smart burglar would clip that out and put it aside, and June 4th would come and he'd be like, okay, they all left. You know, you could even drive past the church and it gets down the street from the house. But you kind of know you have a free shot at that. I generally don't see that. There's not a lot of thought put into most burglaries. Most burglaries, it's the opportunity, and it's the opportunity that exists right then and there. Could it happen? Of course it could, but for the most part, the burglars are like the kids we locked up the other day, driving around aimlessly, and it's just where they chose to do the burglary. These kids, and they told us how they said they drove around and checked out. So we started getting calls from everybody. We got calls from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, Cook County Sheriff's Office, Hickory Hills Police, Fur Ridge Police, Oaklawn Police. These kids drove around every south and western suburb and were doing burglaries. So if they got targeted in the 8th District, you know, maybe they wanted to have lunch somewhere outside of 8, so they decided they were going to go to Oaklawn and, you know, go out there and do a burglary. But the thought was just aimless driving, so there was not a lot of preparation that was put into it. But, you know, that's something, as a detective, yes, I was trained on that years and years ago. Have I ever seen it happen? Never. I've never seen that happen. So could it? Yes, but I have never personally seen it happen.
You said how they were robbing jewelry. You see more and more of these, we buy clothes stores.
Yes.
Is the jewelry ending up in their stores?
Yes and no. You know, we have a licensing unit that recently has done checks on that. And they were going out. The cash for gold industry is an unlicensed, for the most part, industry. There's no checks and balances of it. There's certain things they are and are not supposed to do. So our licensing goes out and makes sure. They're not supposed to melt the gold down immediately when they buy it. They're supposed to take IDs from everyone that they get the jewelry from.
I thought they would resell it.
No, with the value of gold right now, the value is in the gold itself. It's not in the jewelry. So everything, you know, 99% of it is being melted down and sold off as gold. So yes, there's standards that they're supposed to abide by. The ones that don't are getting caught, believe it or not. So, I'm sorry, can you supposed to?
Now I have told us some seniors, you're talking about protection. Well, I got a couple of senior ladies I know, they said they wouldn't be involved in everything for fear they might be killed or mugged or they might be say, well, be a good snitch bitch and everything. And then also at the same time too, one day I go to a funeral at St. Mary's Cemetery, tell my friends, lock your doors. Oh, no, Joe, we don't have to, we won't be there that long and everything. And then at the same time one comment, they never say. They ring my bell. Who's there, please? Tell me your name, the company you're with. I'm not going to let you in. So with that, they get the lady in Unit 1W and everything. I thought, I'm curious. I'm going to just go downstairs and see. It's a comment that I'm telling my friend Jerry before the meeting today. So yeah, you don't know. They might take something while you're there. And besides taking the meter reading, they're going to steal something out the basement.
Yeah, I mean, it's just being aware. You know, it's being aware that does the guy have nothing on him that says ComEd. You know, but as far as the other thing about being intimidated, I live by the standard that there is no honor amongst thieves. And I've seen like domestic related situations, you might get where a family might try and influence a victim. And most of the time it's not even by like threats, it's by trying to reason with them. But once again, I've never seen a burglary victim who was intimidated to the point that he did not want to cooperate. Most of the families of burglary victims, and I don't know their history, if the offender had a drug problem, a lot of families are happy that they got caught because you know what, they're alive, they're going to get their problems taken care of. So it's not like they want retribution for something like that.